Agreed to, and I call the member for Grey.
Speaker, there is a crisis that everyday Australians are feeling right now. There's a crisis happening at the supermarket checkout, at the petrol pump and at the kitchen table where the monthly bills stack up. And to understand what Labor is doing to our economy, think of it like a balloon. Every time this government announces a new program, every time they borrow more money and every time they refuse to rein in their budget, Dr Jim Chalmers is blowing more hot air into this economic balloon. But here is a reality. If you keep pumping air into a balloon, eventually it pops. And when this balloon finally bursts, it is not just going to blow up in Labor's face, it is going to hurt everyday Australians who are already stretched to the absolute limits. Labor's reckless spending is out of control. The Treasurer's own budget papers show he has added $50 billion in new discretionary spending in this financial year alone. Government spending is at its highest levels outside of a recession in nearly 40 years. Because of all this hot air, Labor's debt is racing towards a staggering $1 trillion. That's $1,000 billion. Just to pay the interest on that debt, Australians are shelling out $50,000 every single minute. That is money that adds demand and keeps pressure on prices. An article last week written by the greatest Australian treasurer, Peter Costello. He added that the long-term fiscal focus established by the 1998 Charter of Budget Honesty, which was designed to protect future generations from unsustainable policy, well, that is now gone, Speaker. A wasted 20 years. Costello contends that while Australia was in strong debt-free position 2 decades ago, the nation's sovereign economic capital has since been severely run down. From a position of net debt 20 years ago, the Australian government now carries a net debt of nearly $20,000 for every citizen. But the better way to think of that, because not all people pay taxes. If in South Australia alone, if you combine the net debt of the state Labor government and the federal Labor government by the South Australian workforce, that's over $100,000 per worker. That will be paid off by their children and their grandchildren. Since 2007, tax per person has risen by approximately $16,000 in constant dollars. Yet the government continues to signal that further tax cuts increases may be necessary. Government spending per person has grown by 32% since 2007, double the rate of tax growth. Australia's best and longest-serving Treasurer is worth listening to, Dr Jim Chalmers, and you should take some notes. Speaker, this never-ending cost of living crisis is homegrown. Domestic inflation is running hot at 4.9%, and because of this, our living standards have plummeted. In fact, under Labor, Australia has suffered the biggest fall in household disposable income in the entire developed world. For the first time in Australian history, Aussie kids will be worse off than their parents. That should be a national shame. Our inflation is now worse than any major advanced economy, higher than the US, higher than the UK, Canada, Germany, Italy, France and Japan. When inflation stays higher, interest rates stay high. The average Australian with a mortgage is now paying around $21,000 a year more in interest than they were under the previous coalition government. After nearly 4 years of Labor, everyday Australians are paying more for absolutely everything. Energy, 40%, food, 16%, rent, 22%, insurance, 39%. Labor claimed they would fix childcare, yet out-of-pocket costs are 11%. Energy, the net zero ideology is failing. With temporary energy expiring, the truth is out. Electricity prices have jumped 32% this year alone, and now suddenly Labor is whispering about spending cuts. Do we really trust Labor to cut spending after years of zero restraint? I certainly do not. And I'll tell you what I would cut. The $15 billion of corrupt rorts given to the Construction Centre and CFMEU rorts, or the 10% of identified corruption in the $50 billion a year we spend on the NDIS. As Liberals, we stand for lower inflation, lower interest rates, lower taxes and lower spending. We must cut red tape to help businesses grow. As such, we have called on Labor to form a joint task force on spending restraint. If the Prime Minister is serious about our economy, he will back this proposal. We are running out of time and we must stop inflating the economy before it bursts.